In this first lesson, we're going to start at the very beginning of the opening, if that's even the right thing to say. Or sometimes we'll maybe refer to the opening as Fuseki, which is opening in Japanese. But it's still the same thing, and I'm going to answer the question that I get asked a lot, and that is, what is the correct order of the opening moves? How do we know which moves to play first and which moves to play next? As you will soon see, this is not quite the right question to ask, but let's answer it anyway. But before we do, we need to talk about direction. You can consider this a very long introduction into this lesson. I'm sure that you know that we have these three basic corner opening moves. We have 3-3 or Sun-Sun, then we have 4-4 or the star point, and we have 3-4. And these symmetric moves, they don't really have any side preference, they don't have any direction yet. So on this empty board, both sides of development are equally important and equally interesting for black right now. But once we change this, we break the symmetry and we play the 3-4. Now this stone immediately has a side of preference. It has one weaker side and one stronger one. One side is more interesting and one side is less. And if we imagine that black wants to continue to make territory with this stone, and black plays here, then this is not so interesting at all. Black is making only a few points and the corner is still open. So black really wants to play in this direction, and this gives black a lot more territory. And in the same way, when white approaches this corner, white really wants to do it from the more interesting side, from where it's more open. From here. And what about this side? Well, let me ask you this. When you're playing basketball, you just want to shoot some hoops. Can you score from behind the backboard? You probably can, right? But it's not going to be easy. Definitely not. It's a lot easier to do it from the conventional side, where everyone does it. In the same way, if you approach like this doesn't really prevent black from securing the corner. So black is going to say a huge thank you and defend a corner like this. And now you wouldn't be surprised when I tell you that when you have an enclosure, it also has a direction where it wants to develop. So if black now plays this territory really looks like a flat tire. But when black plays in this direction, this is a lot more interesting, because there is no limit to how much black can grow after this. Black can add another move, and it gets more interesting, and then another move, and another move. So this move in the right direction can grow into a gigantic territory that takes up a quarter of the board. And now suppose black and white both have corner enclosures. They're facing each other, and they both want to develop in the same direction, right here. And this point now becomes twice as important, because if it's black's turn, black will play here immediately, which is a development from black's corner, and it also prevents white's extension in the same area. Black now wants to develop and can grow more and more. But if it's white's turn, white will do exactly the same thing. Develop from his corner and prevent a black's extension. And now let's change this position just a tiny bit. Now we have this corner enclosure. And suddenly, this point is less interesting for both. Why is this? Simply because white now wants to go this way. This is the point where white wants to develop. Black still wants to go here. But now this point is only interesting for black, but not so interesting for white. So it becomes less important. And if we change it even more, now both black and white want to develop in other directions, which means that this point is not really interesting for anybody, and neither black nor white want to play here right now. Maybe a lot later in the game, when all of the big points have been taken, finally somebody will take this point. And this corner development principle stays the same for different cornerstones, not only for the 3-4 point. Let's say if we have a star point, and black wants to develop this point first, and he chooses one of the directions, he makes a little short extension, like this, encloses the corner. And if you want to continue enclosing this corner, continue developing from this corner, then the next point should be a longer one and in the other direction. So after this, black would go somewhere here. And this idea of a balance between short and long is not only seen in the game of Go, but in many other areas of life. Let's say in martial arts or in boxing. Yeah, in boxing. You don't do those long punches which are the same all the time. but you do combinations of short jabs and then maybe long swinging punches and uppercuts. And we do the same thing on the board here. We do a short extension first and a long extension after this. And not only for the start point, but if we say play a 3-4 point, we can also play short first and long after this. And now finally, after this incredibly long introduction, but keeping all of those corner directions at the back of your mind, let's finally get to the ranking of the opening moves. And a lot of professionals did this kind of ranking. Fujisawa Shuko did that, and Ilung Yang did this. And we're going to combine their rankings, and we're going to add some of the AI ideas into this. So we'll have 5 tiers of opening moves. The first one, the first class, is going to be taking an empty corner, in accordance with the corner, corner, side, center principle. So let's say black takes an empty corner, and then you see an empty corner, you don't think about anything else, just take it. So both sides take all 4 of the corners. And the second tier includes a lot more in it. In the second class, we have a corner enclosure or a corner approach, or playing a joseki after this. So for example, right now, black can think about enclosing the corner like this, or enclosing this corner, but it will be equally good to approach any of these corners. From the right side, of course, approaching this corner or this one. Computers usually prefer attacking your opponent's corners to enclosing your own, but it's really a matter of style or preference. Whichever feels more natural to you, whichever you prefer, do that one. So black could enclose one of the corners. Now, as a matter of principle, you could approach this corner now, just not to give black both corners like this. But it will be absolutely fine for white to enclose another corner right now. And at this point, once again, black has 2 choices of equal importance. Black can defend the corner or attack white. And if black attacks white first, a joseki, or a standard corner sequence, will be played. And we can all play it within this second class of moves. So let's say white responds, and black will attack the stone. White will pull back. Now black needs to defend. White defends the corner, and black extends. And all of that played within this second tier. And after this, we continue. But for simplicity's sake, let's say that black chose the peaceful option, and black just enclosed the corner. White obviously does the same thing. And this is when all of the corners are now properly enclosed, which means we now have to move on to the third tier, which is extensions which are interesting for both sides. For example, at the bottom here we have 2 corner enclosures which are facing each other. They're facing in the same direction, which means that this point is very important for both of them. And black really wants to take it right now. Black plays here. And now that black takes this point, the right side becomes incredibly important for both. Black wants to take the side from this corner, and also to develop this side as well. And in order not to give black all of this, white needs to invade right now. And a good point for invasion would be playing right here in the middle, because this creates 2 miai points for white. It doesn't matter which side black attacks from, white will always have a place to go. And at this point, it's very good for black to stay on the same tier, on this third tier, and attack white first, because black can expand this corner and attack white at the same time. So black attacks, and now white needs to make an extension in order to make a base for the stones to live here. And a good way of doing this is playing this 2-space extension. And now we get to tier number 4, that is playing moves that are interesting only for one of the sides. And the top side is interesting for white because white is facing this way, but it's less interesting for black because black wants to go this way. But nevertheless, it's black's turn, and because this point is good for white, black takes it right now, not to give it to white. And at tier number 5, we have the moves that are not really interesting for either side, but we have to play them anyway because these are the last moves left to play on the board. For example, now that this point has been taken, this side has become significantly less interesting for white and for black, but there is an extension here, so white can consider playing here right now. It still develops a corner, and it prevents black from expanding his side. In the same way, black could consider playing here right now to prevent white from extending from this corner and to develop his own position. And the last point left on the board is the left side. It's not really interesting for white because white wants to go this way and this way, but now this is the last point left on the board and white plays somewhere around here. These last three moves are all in the same tier, tier number 5, and black and white could have played them in any order. Now that the opening is complete, let's go over the principles one more time. So, Class 1, occupy the empty corners. Class 2, approach your opponent's corners, reinforce your own, or play a Joseki, a corner sequence. Class 3, take the points that are interesting for both sides. Class 4, take the points that are interesting only for one side. And Class 5, take the points that are not really interesting for either side. But now I have to tell you that you're really unlikely to see an opening like this, an idealized, perfect, peaceful opening in a modern game. Even though AI approves of this and doesn't think that there are any mistakes here, but still, modern players have become a lot more aggressive. I don't know why, maybe because of boxing or something else, but very often when the first tier and the second tier moves have been played, after this an aggressive fight will start and it will never end. But no matter how your opening will develop, it's good to keep this ranking of opening moves as the base foundation for your decision making in the opening. And every time you're playing a peaceful opening and you don't really know what to do, you can think of these tiers to help you make a choice. And in addition to those modern tendencies, you have to remember that every person is unique, and there are a lot of varying and different styles out there. So when you play in a game against someone who makes the first 4 opening moves in the center in a weird formation, and then he makes use of those stones, or when someone plays defensively right from the start, you don't have to think that, oh, that's a mistake, I'm going to punish that. But rather, it's like getting hit with a snowball in your face. Like, huh? I didn't know that was possible. I need to find a way how to play against that. So understanding which moves are big and which moves are small, which moves are important and which are less important, is an essential piece of knowledge, but it's clearly not enough to play a successful opening.
By the way, you can also watch these lessons on our platform, gomagic.org. Except there, you'll watch them with interactive quizzes right within the lessons and practical exercises right after them. And if you enjoy watching these Go videos and you don't want to miss others like this one, go smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and this is Go Magic.